Hey, good morning, gang. Pastor Jerry here. Hope you're all doing well. And I'm home. It's good to be home. And I wanted to share with you all. If you go to our church, you know where we are. If you don't go, you know where we're going through a book called The Awe of God. And so I've read ahead, like I should read ahead. And one of those subjects of the books, one of the chapters of the books, really hit me hard. It's called "It Doesn't Make Sense." And as you read through that chapter, you're going to really begin to think back on the things that you've done that didn't make sense, but God moved. And so the story picks up in First Kings. It talks about a prophet, a young prophet who had a command from the Lord. And he told him to go somewhere, but when you return home, he says, don't eat anything while you're gone. Don't drink while you're gone. And also, when you return home, don't return by the same way you came. And he's like, well, that doesn't make sense. And sometimes when God tells us things to do, it does not make sense. But you've got to trust his spirit. And so the key thing here is that the prophet obeyed the Lord in almost everything that he did. He did not obey God, and he came home the same way. And the same way he came home, a lion killed him. And there are times when God says, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. And we're trying to consciously or subconsciously outthink God. We're trying to elevate our thinking to what makes sense to God. And sometimes things just don't make sense. Sometimes God wants our faith over fundamentals. That's good. Write that down. And so as the story goes on, this is a great man of God, but he disobeyed God in one small thing, and it cost him his life. And there is a verse that he uses towards the end of this chapter, and it's so powerful. And let me find it real quick here. It's in Matthew, and it says, it's Matthew chapter 11, verse 19. And it says, the Son of Man, on the other hand, feasts and drinks and says, he's a glutton. And then it skips down and it says, but wisdom is shown to be right by its results. Wisdom is shown to be right by its results. When my family and I were in Texas, and we had just moved into our brand new house. The house was maybe 6 months old. It was our dream house. We had 30 acres. We had a pond. It was just great. We had horses. We had cows. We were out in the country where we love. And within 6 months, God said, move. And it just didn't make sense. I asked my friends, I asked some family, and only 2 people said, if it's God, go. Everyone else said it doesn't make sense. Why would you leave Texas? Why would you leave your mom and your brother behind? And it just didn't make sense. To move to Las Vegas, to start a church, it just didn't make sense. And the wisdom of God is shown to be right by its results. I'm so glad I listened to God and not myself. I'm so glad I listened to God and not people who said no. When God says something that doesn't make sense, you got to trust the faith and not the fundamentals. And so I hope that helps somebody out there. I don't know what you guys are going through, but sometimes it doesn't make sense, but you got to trust God. You have to trust God. Now it's going to line up with his word, but you've got to trust God. And so in closing, just trust God, because things won't always add up. When Peter was fishing and he had caught nothing the whole night, he had caught nothing, and he was a professional fisherman. And Jesus comes along and says, throw your nets out one more time. It didn't make sense, and he obeyed God, and he got more fish than he ever had in his life. And so sometimes when we're doing things on our own, it doesn't make sense. But when God comes in, or sometimes when we're doing things on our own, it makes sense and there's no results. And when God comes along, he says, do the same thing again, and it doesn't make sense, and we have results. So trust God, because sometimes it doesn't make sense. All right. Love you guys so much. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you this weekend at church. Bye-bye.